Alright, let's dive into something that's been buzzing in the music world lately: Spotify's decision to start labeling AI artists. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, let me just say this: personally, I think this is a game changer. Not just for Spotify, but for the entire music industry. Here's why. First off, Spotify is introducing something called AI personas, a badge that'll pop up on artist profiles, search results, and playlists starting mid-September. What makes this really interesting is the why behind it. Spotify says listeners have been vocal about feeling misled when they discover an artist they thought was human is actually AI generated. And honestly, I get it. There's something about knowing you're engaging with a real person's creativity that just hits different. So, this move feels like Spotify is trying to bridge that trust gap. But here's where it gets tricky: the labeling isn't entirely voluntary. Spotify's giving artists the chance to self-disclose, but they're also taking matters into their own hands by reviewing profiles that meet certain criteria, like having a photorealistic AI-generated identity and a decent listener count. This raises a deeper question: how much transparency is enough? And who gets to decide? One thing that immediately stands out is Spotify's stance on recommendations. They're saying AI-labeled artists won't be included in their editorial or algorithmic playlists by default. From my perspective, this is Spotify drawing a line in the sand. They're essentially saying, we value authenticity, which is a bold statement in an era where AI is blurring the lines between real and synthetic. But here's the kicker: this policy only applies to artist profiles, not the music itself. So, if a human artist uses AI to create a song, that track could still make it into playlists without any labeling. What this really suggests is that Spotify is more concerned with the identity of the artist than the method of creation. That's a fascinating distinction, and it's one that's going to spark a lot of debate. Now, let's zoom out for a second. Spotify's move comes at a time when the music industry is grappling with how to handle AI. Bandcamp, for instance, has outright banned AI music. Meanwhile, the RIAA and IFPI are pushing for song-level labeling, similar to how explicit content is flagged. What many people don't realize is that this isn't just about transparency, it's about control. Who owns the narrative around AI in music? Is it the platforms, the labels, or the artists themselves? Personally, I think Spotify's approach is a middle ground, but it's far from perfect. For example, what happens if an AI artist appeals Spotify's labeling decision? And how will user-reported profiles be handled? These are questions that Spotify hasn't fully answered yet, and they're going to be crucial as this rolls out. Here's another angle to consider: Spotify already tried something similar earlier this year with AI credits on songs, but that was entirely voluntary. This new labeling system feels like a natural evolution, but it's also a response to growing pressure from the industry and listeners alike. If you take a step back and think about it, this is Spotify trying to stay ahead of the curve. They're acknowledging that AI is here to stay, but they're also trying to shape how it's perceived on their platform. That's smart business, but it's also a bit of a tightrope walk. On one hand, they're giving listeners what they want: transparency. On the other, they're potentially alienating AI artists who feel their work is being unfairly stigmatized. So, where does this leave us? In my opinion, Spotify's AI persona badges are just the beginning of a much larger conversation. They're forcing us to ask tough questions about creativity, authenticity, and the role of technology in art. A detail I find fascinating is how this could impact the charts. If major labels are pushing to disqualify AI tracks, and Spotify's excluding AI artists from recommendations, where does that leave AI-generated music? Is it destined to be a niche, or will it find its own space? Personally, I think AI music isn't going anywhere, but its place in the industry is still very much up for grabs. Closing thought: Spotify's move is a big step, but it's also just one piece of a much larger puzzle. As listeners, creators, and industry players, we're all going to have to decide where we stand on AI in music. Is it a tool, a threat, or something in between? There's no right answer, but one thing's for sure, this conversation is just getting started. So, what do you think? Are Spotify's AI labels a step in the right direction, or are they missing the mark? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep listening.